We are live here at Petco Park as the Padres drop their series finale to the Miami Marlins by a final score of 9-1 here in downtown San Diego on this Wednesday afternoon. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we wrap this one up. Final totals in this one for the Marlins: 9 runs, 16 hits, no errors. For the Padres, 1 run, 8 hits, and 2 errors. Padres do take 2 out of 3 in this 3-game series, but they do not win the series finale. Padres drop to 30-29. Marlins improve to 20-37. Lot to do on our post-game coverage. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll walk you through this game, play the radio highlights, and much more to come. Before we get into this game, we do have an update on Yu Darvish, who came out of this game after just 3 innings and 66 pitches, and there were 3 kind of tough innings for Yu Darvish in this game, but when he came out, it was still only a 3-0 game. So at the time, it was a little curious. 66 pitches, that's not very many at all. He was out of the game after 3 innings. Mike Shildt saying after the game that Darvish was pulled due to hamstring tightness. We just learned. Mike Shildt still talking downstairs, so I did want to pass that along. Yu Darvish pulled reportedly with hamstring tightness. So we'll hear more of what Mike Shildt had to say coming up in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But it turns out Yu Darvish was pulled due to an injury here today, which I don't find all that surprising, because when he came out after just 3 innings, I know he threw a lot of pitches in the 30 through 29 pitches, but 3 innings, 66 pitches, and just the 3-0 game, it felt like something was up, and indeed there was something up. Again, Yu Darvish pulled with a hamstring tightness, and we'll hear from Mike Shildt coming up in a little bit, so we'll get the full update on Yu Darvish, but not great news there. Hopefully nothing serious for you. We'll hear what Mike Shildt had to say in full in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about this game. And look, is it the end of the world that the Padres didn't complete the sweep of this series, that they end up taking just 2 out of 3, that they can't win a 4th in a row heading on the road? No, it's not the end of the world. You want to win series. The Padres did that. The Padres have won 7 of their last 9 series. For the most part, if you really cancel out the Rockies series where they got swept, they've been playing pretty good baseball. Obviously, the first 2 games of the Yankees series didn't go all that well, but to their credit, they did bounce back and win the final game of that series against the Yankees. The frustrating part about this one, really 2 things. Number one, and now we learned there was an injury for Yu Darvish, so I want to, with that in mind, I talk about you here today. But you just felt like entering this game, the Padres had an opportunity to sweep here at home. You had Yu Darvish, who, aside from that start against the Yankees, had been really, really good as of late. And he struggled early on. You fell behind, and the Padres couldn't catch up in this game. So you were hoping to get that version of Yu Darvish that we had seen in the 4 starts prior to the Yankees start. We didn't really get that today, and it turns out he was dealing with hamstring tightness. The other really frustrating part about this game, it was just really sloppy. This was one of the sloppier games the Padres played all year. I have a list here of miscues. I'm debating whether I should run through them right now. I guess I will. It's worth doing. There were just a lot of miscues in this game. Errors, base running mistakes. Just quickly to run through them. Top of the second, there was defense in that top of the second inning where the Padres fell behind 2-0. There were no errors in that inning, but maybe just a few fine things that could have been done better. Fernando Tatis Jr. unable to catch that Fortes line drive. If he takes a different route to it, maybe he can keep it in front. I don't know. He was going for the play there, and it went over his head. But, I don't know that there was much more Fernando could have done there. Jake Cronenworth, the ball hit really hard off the bat of Jazz Chisholm Jr. Cronenworth can't keep it in front. That's a spot where if he keeps it in front, probably prevents a run from scoring. Then things these were the more egregious ones as we went along. The top of the third inning, Manny Machado just makes a throwing error, just a really bad throw. Ends up scoring a run all the way from second base. That was a key error in this game. Top of the 5th inning, Manny Machado deals with what was a pretty bad hop, and it leads to a run scoring. Was not ruled an error. Bottom of the 5th inning, Padres are down 6-1 at that point. Fernando Tatis Jr. tries to stretch what would have been a single into a double. He's thrown out at second base down 5 runs. That wasn't great. Top of the 9th inning, there's a missed catch from Jay Cronenworth. He ends up kicking the ball towards the dugout. That's another error. So the list sort of went on and on in this game of miscues. It was one of the sloppier games the Padres have really played all year. And then you look at the offense in this game, and this was sort of the final part of, I think, the frustration in this one. The Padres get 1 run, and it was courtesy of a Ha-Sung Kim home run. And it goes beyond just today, though, because even though the Padres won 2 out of 3 in this series, the offense wasn't particularly explosive, if we're being honest about it. The Padres scored 2 runs on Monday. They scored 4 runs on Tuesday. They scored 1 run on a Kim home run here today. So that's a grand total of 7 runs against 3 left-handed starters, and we've talked a lot about the Padres' troubles against left-handed pitching in the early part of this season. Keep in mind, those 3 starters in this series, whether it was Rogers, Luzardo, or today Garrett, the 3 of them combined, they combined for a 2.80 ERA in 16 innings and a third. The Padres only scored 5 runs against them, and I think the part of this series that continues to highlight one of the major concerns right now is the guys you need to produce not driving in runs. Guys like Tatis, guys like Machado, because you look at this series, the 7 runs the Padres scored, they came on these. I have every one of them written down here. Solano's home run, Cronenworth's walk, that was on Monday. Then the Profar home run, Profar RBI single, Solano RBI single yesterday, and Ha-Sung Kim with the home run today. That was it in this series against the Marlins, against 3 left-handed starting pitchers. So again, Profar, Solano, Kim, and then Cronenworth with a bases-loaded walk. That's how the Padres got their runs in this series. So, I think the continued lack of big damage against lefties continues to be a concern. Padres did win 2 out of 3 in this series. I don't want to take that away. It is about winning series right now. You finished this series a game above 500, but it did feel like this was a nice opportunity today with Yu Darvish on the mound to pick up some steam, move to 3 games above 500, and admittedly, after this one here today, you feel like it's a little bit of what we've seen with the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, so on and so on. So, as I always say, 2 things can be true at once. I think this was a nice opportunity, a missed opportunity for the Padres here today. It is also not the end of the world, but look, the other part of this one, Manny Machado had a rough afternoon, did have a base hit late, struck out in what he felt like was a key spot in the game in the 3rd inning where the Padres are down 3-1 at that point. They're rallying. They have runners on 1st and 2nd with 1 out. Manny strikes out. Padres end up only scoring 1 on the Kim home run in that 3rd. Fernando was 1 for 4 today, but again, the 1 hit, he gets thrown out at second base, down by 5. Fernando did have a couple of hits yesterday. Manny did contribute a little bit yesterday with a walk and a single, but from a run-producing perspective, kind of a quiet series for both those guys, which obviously those guys producing runs, driving in runs, when you look at the keys for this team over the course of the next 2/3 of this season, it's just remarkably important. So frustrating here today. The series offensively as a whole isn't going to knock your socks off. Again, with that said, they did win 2 out of 3. This homestand did not start very well with the 2 losses to the Yankees. They were able to win 3 in a row at one point. But again, you just felt like this was a nice opportunity to sweep a series, and the Padres couldn't do it. We'll see if they can use the day off and then hit the ground running in Kansas City. Look, the team's been very good on the road, and they've been very good against good teams so far this year, and Kansas City has been a good team so far here in 2024, and they go on the road to face them. So we'll see what happens with all that. We'll preview the series in Kansas City coming up a little bit later as well. When we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll walk you through this game. Again, if you're just joining us, Yu Darvish, according to Mike Shildt, was removed from this game after 3 innings and just 66 pitches due to hamstring tightness. So it's not a great update there. And again, we'll hear more from Mike Shildt coming up in just a bit. So stay tuned. More postgame coming up after this on the Padres Radio Network. With you in the Western Metal Building here at Petco Park as we wrap this one up. We'll hand things over to Chris Elomat Scraby a little bit later towards the top of the hour. They'll take you until 6 p.m., and then we'll have today's edition of the Scraby Show from 6 to 7. And until then, we continue to wrap this one up. Padres falling in the final game of this 3-game series. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt coming up in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But first, let's recap this one.
What moments had the biggest impact on today's game? We'll paint you a picture with our game recap on the Padres Radio Network.
We had a scoreless first inning on this Wednesday afternoon. Padres looking for a series sweep of the Fish. Yu Darvish went back to the mound for the second. Nick Gordon hit a leadoff single. He stole second base. With 2 men away, it was Nick Fortes.
Not a lot down at the bottom so far. We'll see if that continues. 1-1 pitch, lined into the right center field gap. Tatis on the move, overran it, gets over his head, and the Marlins going to take the lead as Gordon comes in to score. Fortes slides feet first into second, and the Fish in front 1-0 here in inning number 2.
Marlins weren't done. Jazz Chisholm Jr. was next.
2-1 pitch, hit hard on the ground to the right side, off of Cronenworth's glove, ends up behind him. Fortes rounding third, he's going to score as Tatis picks it up in shallow right, and the Marlins take a 2-0 lead. They called it an RBI single for Jazz Chisholm Jr.
Marlins then got more in the third, a single, a walk, and then a 2-out throwing error by Manny Machado allowed a run to score all the way from second base. The Marlins had a 3-0 lead. Marlins starter Braxton Garrett took the mound for the bottom half of the third. Ha-Sung Kim led off.
3 runs on 6 hits. Kim sends this one in the air to deep left field. Gordon's back on the track, at the wall, gonna go! Home run, Ha-Sung Kim, number 7. And the Padres are on the board. It's 3-1.
For a moment, it looked like the Padres could rally back in this one. Yu Darvish came out of the game after just 3 innings and 66 pitches. We later learned, and we'll hear from Mike Shildt in just a moment, that Darvish came out after feeling tightness in his hamstring. Stephen Kolek pitched a scoreless top of the 4th inning to keep it a 3-1 deficit, but then the Marlins rallied in the 5th. Josh Bell hit a leadoff double. He was still on second base for Jake Berger.
0-1. The pitch. Berger swings, lines it into center field, base hit. Charged by Merrill. Bell's being waved. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in foul territory up the third base line. Bell scores. Berger goes into second, and the Marlin lead is 4-1.
Marlins would end up scoring 3 runs on 6 hits in that inning, all charged to Stephen Kolek, although Enyel De Los Santos came in and did allow 3 of the hits in that inning. Marlins led 6-1 after 5. Jesus Sanchez hit a solo home run against De Los Santos in the top of the 6th inning to make it 7-1. Jazz Chisholm Jr. hit an RBI triple in the top of the 7th inning to make it 8-1. That was against Johnny Brito. Brito would throw a scoreless 8th inning, but he did allow a run in the 9th inning to make it a 9-1 game. Meanwhile, the Padres didn't do a whole lot offensively, really nothing offensively aside from the Kim home run. Garrett went 5 innings, 1 run given up, and then 4 scoreless innings out of the pen between Anthony Bender, A.J. Puck, Calvin Fauché, and Tanner Scott. And that was that here today. Final score, Marlins 9 and the Padres 1. Again, the Padres have their mini 3-game winning streak snapped. Padres do take 2 out of 3 from the Marlins this week. Padres now 30-29 on the year. Marlins improved to 20-37. Marlins had 16 hits in this game, 9 runs total. Padres had 1 run on 8 hits. Let's go downstairs here at Petco Park and hear some post-game reaction.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Mike, what was going on with you today? Is he okay, and what did you see out of him?
He had a little bit of tightness in his hamstring. Wasn't overly significant, but felt it. And then we, still coming out good, was pitching pretty well. But once he had the longer inning in the 3rd, just made sense to go ahead and go to the bullpen.
Not the cleanest game today. Been
No,
a while
it wasn't.
since you had one. What did you see? What did you think?
You pretty much reiterate your words. Just wasn't very clean. We haven't had many of those. Didn't help ourselves. Now, also they had a pretty good approach. They came in, took some good at bats against Kolek and De Los Santos. Had a nice idea what they were doing there and executed their plan, and got to give them credit for that. But we just weren't clean today. Weren't clean enough.
When did the hamstring start bothering you, and do you expect it to linger? Like, what what the next?
I don't know. He's going to get some testing, as you would expect. He felt it. Nothing extreme. Felt fine. Felt like he could go. And then the long inning in the 3rd, started to feel like he was maybe starting to feel a little compromised. So we obviously did something about it.
So it was a thing early in his start that he was pitching through.
Yeah, listen, these guys always have a little bit of something. So, we always listened to the player, and he said, no, I feel fine. I can take, and the ball was coming out and everything was, he's getting not a lot of hard contact, So, but again, he had the longer inning in the 3rd, and it was time to go to the bullpen and give him some rest and see what we have.
This season, when you guys have kind of hit some rough patches, you've kind of fought back with resiliency, and then there have been a few times where it looks like you're about to take off and haven't quite hit that gear yet. What do you make anything of that, or is that just?
See, I kind of take a little exception with that. I really do. Every time we lose a game, we can't say it's like there's a rough patch when we just won a series. I don't understand. I don't get that. And you win 7 out of 9 series. I get it. We lost. It wasn't a crisp game, but. I don't buy into that. I can't support that particular narrative.
Can I clarify then?
You can
Because I
absolutely
don't think this
clarify.
was a rough patch. I think you guys were
Yeah.
playing pretty good baseball the last 3 games, and
Right.
you haven't necessarily been able to kind of really hit that stride that's taken you guys off this season. I'm just wondering if that roller coaster, in your opinion, is just kind of the nature of the
Again, I
baseball
take
season.
exception with this roller coaster. I want to ride every roller coaster I can ever get on winning 7 out of 9 series. You sign me up for that ride, I'm all on board. Because if you go 6-4 the whole season, you win 96 games. So, I mean, I do understand the question. You talk about taking off, but gosh, man, I don't have a great answer for winning 7 out of 9 series not being good enough.
Hey, Mike, which hamstring is it? I'm sorry.
I believe it's his right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Left. Okay. Mike, how difficult is it to sweep a team?
It's hard. It's the big leagues. It's not easy. I mean, clearly we're ready to go out and, to AJ's point, continue to take off, and we didn't today. Their guys pretty good. Just come off a complete game. Threw the ball well. They had some good at bats. They made their plays. Didn't play our best and didn't win a game.
As you point out, these guys are human, right? So these
Yeah, of
games
course.
happen over the course of 162.
They just do.
So do you just, like, when this game happens, is there things that are addressed, or
What would we address? That's the part and again, I don't want to be, I've admitted the game wasn't clean. I'm not alibying it. The game was not clean. It wasn't our best effort. No question about it. What would also be nice if we had conversations about, hey, the team's playing well. They won 7 out of 9. This looks pretty good. They played clean. Bullpen was good. Those kind of questions. So I don't know what I would address to a group that's playing really good baseball that just didn't have their best day. I don't know what to say to that. Today was not our best effort.
and that would be right. That's an answer to my question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and
But
it
I'm
probably
not-
stands out because
That's also a great point. Yeah, for me, it's not been, a part of it. It's been an outlier, and you're going to have outlier games, 162, and again, nobody in that clubhouse, including myself, is happy about it or will excuse it.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt after today's game. Marlins win it 9-1 over the Padres. Sam Levitt back with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park. Interesting there, right? Kind of a similar press conference to what we've, heard before after some of these tough losses. That wasn't exactly like what we heard after the sweep against the Rockies, but well, let's look at the numbers here, right? Because Mike Shildt essentially there, I think is trying to make the point of, while they lost today's game, it was sloppy. We understand that. They're sitting just 1 game above 500. That winning 7 of 9 series shows a positive trajectory. Now, there are numbers that back that up, right? They've won 7 of 9 series. If you look at the Padres' last 28 games, they're 16-12. They were sitting at 14-17 on April 29th. And since then, they're 16-12. So if you do want to look at the last 28 games, yeah, they're 4 games above 500. So there are numbers that I think back up what Mike Shildt is saying there, admittedly. I think the line of questioning, and we heard there from A.J. Cassavell, from Kevin Acee there, I think the line of questioning, and I don't want to speak for those guys, it probably falls more under the overall record, right? And the fact that they're 30-29. The fact that, yeah, it's 16-12 over 28 games, but you don't feel like this team has really taken off yet. And look, you heard Mike Shildt mention there, if you go 6-4 throughout the whole season, you end up with well more than 90 wins, and that's all true. That's true. Like I always say, right? And not to say it for the second time today, 2 things can be true at once. This team has won 7 of 9 series. They are 16-12 in their last 28 games, and that's good. At the same time, they are still only a game above 500. And you don't feel, I don't think personally, like they've really, quote unquote, taken off yet. right? Like, there hasn't been a real big-time run. And you do figure at some point for this team to be a postseason team, you kind of have to take that run. Now, maybe they don't. I mean, we got a long way to go here. Today was game number 59. So we got a long way to go. Maybe they don't. Maybe if you play sort of this way throughout the rest of the year and you win, you just keep winning series. Look, the bottom line is this. You keep winning series, you're going to end up just fine. But it feels like most teams need that run, right, to rattle off a 7-8 game winning streak, winning 10 of 11, whatever it might be, right? So, look, I think there's a case to be made on kind of both sides of maybe what we heard in that press conference, right? Of what Mike Shildt saying, of what some of the line of questioning is. Again, they've won 7 of 9 series. At the same time, they did get swept by the Rockies in that span. They're 16-12 in the last 28 games. At the same time, they are just a game above 500. They haven't really had that big-time run, that hot stretch. They've got plenty of time to do it. Look, I think personally, when you zoom out at what they've done, the fact that they're 30-29, they're 16-12 in the last 28 games, and they've done that over a span where you feel like for the most part they haven't really clicked all at once a lot, right? And what do I mean by that? Starting pitching, it's not like they've gone weeks on end where it's been really, really, really great for weeks on end, and you feel like that's in there somewhere for this starting rotation. Certainly, you look at the run-producing numbers for Fernando Tatis Jr., for Manny Machado. Those two guys have not played up to what you know they can be. And this team sits in a not-so-bad spot, right? So I guess you zoom out, you look at how they've played over the last month now, really, and yeah, it's been pretty good considering some of the factors, considering Manny's been quiet, considering Fernando's been quiet, considering the rotation's been a little bit up and down. Yeah, it's an interesting spot they're in. I would say 59, 60 games in, right? There's a little bit of I think both elements in there of a team that's played well at times, but you do look at it, they're a game above 500, and there's room for growth and improvement, and a run you hope is in there. So, yeah, that was interesting press conference there. And look, we've heard from Mike Shildt throughout the year. Look, he's been very, very positive about his group, about the way they've played, about kind of what they have in them. And we'll see how it all shakes out, right? We're 59 games in. We've got a long, long way to go. They have won 7 of 9 series. They are playing some pretty good baseball on the whole. If you zoom out over the course of the last month, really, if you quite frankly, if you just take out, then you can't take it out, but you take out the Rockies series, or let's say they win 2 out of 3 against the Rockies, I think you'd feel a whole lot better probably, and how much better it would kind of all look. But, yeah, there's a lot to chew on with this baseball team. I would say 59, 60 games in. All right, let's step aside here on the Padres Radio Network. When we return, we'll continue to break down this ball game. If you want to get involved, you can do that in a few ways here today. We'll probably skip phone calls because we want to turn things over to Chris Ello and Matt Scraby towards the top of the hour. But you can tweet at me at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Instagram DM's open as well. Sammy Lev there too, SAMMYLEV. If you want to comment on our video streams, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you can do that too. And I'll cycle through some of those as we go. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll continue to break down this game. Final score, tough one for the Padres here today. Marlins 9, Padres 1 on the Padres Radio Network. the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we wrap this one up. Tough one for the Padres here today as they drop the series finale to the Marlins. Marlins had 9 runs on 16 hits. Padres did not play a particularly clean game of baseball in this one. In the opening segment, we ran through all the various miscues and errors and base running mistakes the Padres had in this one. So you hope the day off does this team some good. Hopefully a cleaner brand of baseball awaits in Kansas City. Padres starting a 6-game road trip to Kansas City and to Anaheim against the Angels. 6-game road trip starting on Friday. We'll have more on that coming up a little bit later. Then they're back home a week from tomorrow against the Diamondbacks for a 7-game homestand against the D-backs for 4 and then the A's for 3. So we'll have more on that coming up later, and we continue on our post-game coverage. And we heard from Mike Shildt already. We walked you through the radio highlights already. Before we go, we may ask Frank to just clip some of what Mike Shildt had to say, maybe back to kind of the back and forth with the reporters there, because that was pretty interesting, the back and forth we heard. Before we get to all that, let's tell you about our relief pitcher of the game.
Which pitcher was able to come in and slam the door shut? It's time for the relief pitcher of the game in support of the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, providing food assistance to local children, families, and seniors in need. To get help or give help, visit SanDiegoFoodBank.org.
Our relief pitcher of the game here today. I'm not going to take anybody from the Padres side because Kolek gave up 3 runs. De Los Santos gave up a home run. Brito gave up a couple of runs. So it's going to be a Marlin for relief pitcher today. And, give it to Tanner Scott in the 9th inning for the Marlins. It's a process of elimination. He threw a scoreless inning. Didn't allow a hit, threw the least pitches out of anybody in the bullpen for the Marlins today, so congratulations, Mr. Tanner Scott. You are the relief pitcher of the game today. One of those here today where it's not particularly exciting, the relief pitcher of the game. But Tanner Scott will get it for the Marlins. Hey, Marlins bullpen did a good job in this game. 4 scoreless innings. They allowed just 2 hits. And like I alluded to earlier, to me, one of the real problems in this series for the Padres, and I say problems lightly because they did win 2 out of 3. And look, again, you can win 2 out of 3, and there can also be some concerns out of a series. And, you look at the Padres against the 3 left-handed starters in this series for the Marlins. It's not like they did real serious damage against them. Trevor Rogers, 5 innings and a third, 1 run given up on Monday. Last night you had, Rogers was on Monday. 5 1/3 innings, 1 earned run given up. Then Luzardo last night, 6 innings, 3 runs given up. Braxton Garrett here today, 5 innings, 1 run given up. So combined between those 3, 16 innings and a third, 5 runs allowed. That was a 2.80 ERA for the 3 starters combined for the Marlins, all left-handers. And I pointed this out earlier, and I think it's worth saying again. The Padres, again, just a point of concern from this series. They only scored 7 runs when they faced 3 left-handed starters, and we know that left-handed pitching has been a major issue for this team. Almost shockingly this season it's been an issue. But you look at who drove in the runs. Solano with a home run, Cronenworth a bases-loaded walk, Profar a home run, Profar an RBI single, Solano an RBI single, and the only run today was the Kim home run. I bring that up to say, and look, you're kind of looking at 2 guys, I think in particular, Tatis and Machado, guys that you feel should be able to handle left-handed pitching better and do some serious damage against left-handed pitching as far as producing runs. Now, look, those 2 guys yesterday, and I talked about it after the game, Fernando had a couple of hits, both led to run scoring in innings, and those hits both came against Luzardo. Manny had a walk and a base hit yesterday that led to a run scoring, or at least was in an inning with a run scoring. But you do look at the way they scored the 7 runs in this series, and the run production, I would say, a little light from what you would have hoped. And coming from, you'll take it, certainly, the sources in Solano and Profar, but again, it is just so important that those 2 guys, Tatis and Machado, really get things going in a real run-producing way, in a real OPS-friendly type of way. It's just incredibly important for this team. And like we talked about in the last segment, when we talk about this team, really, really getting hot, right? And we mentioned it, 16-12 in their last 28 games. They've won 7 of 9 series, so they've played good baseball for the most part the last month. But when you talk about them really stringing a run together, something like 7, 8 wins in a row, 9 of 10, 10 of 12, 11 of 12, whatever it might be, dream up whatever scenario you want. It's just hard to imagine that happening without Fernando and Manny being a massive part of it. So that's, I guess, the overall point that I'm making here. So we'll see. Left-handed starters, they did a pretty good job against the Padres in this series, despite the Padres winning 2 out of 3. So, again, you can win 2 out of 3. You can be 16-12 in your last 28 games. Still 30-29 overall. Up and down we go, right? Sort of a riding the roller coaster. I don't, we heard Mike Shildt after the game. I don't know that he loved the roller coaster analogy, but certainly been a little bit of, I don't know, maybe not roller coaster, the massive ups and downs, but a little bit of up and down in the first third of this season. When we come back on the Padres Radio Network, we'll take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, tell you about our player of the game, continue to cycle through your comments. If you want to get involved, you can do that in a number of different ways. You can tweet at me at Sammy Lev, SammyLev. Instagram DM's open as well, Sammy Lev there too. And you can also comment on the video streams, and I'll run through some of those as we go along on this Wednesday afternoon as we bring you up until Crisello, Matt Scraby. They'll come your way towards the top of the hour. Marlins win it 9-1 over the Padres on this Wednesday afternoon. More post-game coverage after this. metal building at Petco Park as we wrap this one up. Again, you can get involved on our post-game show by tweeting at me or Instagram DMing me at SammyLev, SammyLev. We'll take your comments on the video streams as well if you're watching right now on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. I do want to read a tweet here from Cole. Cole says, winning series is great, but having been swept twice already and losing a few along the way, we desperately need to go on a run if we want to compete in October. Without it going on a good run, we are just a 500 team. Cole, look, I totally understand it. You sort of summed up, I won't say exactly what I said earlier, but it's along the same line of thinking, right? Winning series is great. Padres have won 7 of 9 series. They're 16-12 in the last 28 games. So you zoom out on the last month, and overall, you've played some good baseball. But I do agree with you about the run. You just feel like the 1 step forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, so on and so on. You feel like that can't go on forever. You do feel like there's got to be a run. Now, maybe we're totally wrong. Maybe just winning series, and actually, if you keep winning series, you'll end up in a fine spot in all likelihood. You're not going to win every series the rest of the way. That's for certain. But you do feel like most teams have a real hot run. And I think without question, there hasn't been a hot run yet, right? Look, again, 16-12 last 28 games, winning a lot of series, that's great. Still a game above 500. It's not like they're 10 games above 500. They were 14-17 at the end of April 29th, and that's when they went on this 28-game run of 16-12. So, multiple things can kind of ring true at the same time, and we shall see. 59 games in, it's been up and down. Long way to go. And like we've been saying, you certainly feel like getting the big guys going, Fernando and Manny in particular now with Bogarts on the IL. It's got to be a big part of it. Let's tell you about today's player of the game.
Which player had the biggest impact on today's game? Let's find out who is today's player of the game. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Catch every game at Patties and Pints. Plus, enjoy $4 beer every Thursday. Visit valleyviewcasino.com today.
Our player of the game here today on the Padres Radio Network. Got to go with a Marlin in this one, don't we? I think so. 2 candidates, I would say, today. Either Josh Bell, who had 3 hits and a couple of runs scored, or Jazz Chisholm Jr., who had 2 hits and 2 RBIs. We'll give it to Josh Bell. 3 hits, 2 runs scored. Did a really nice job in this game. Led off a couple of innings. Led off that big 5th inning, 3-run 5th. Led off the 3rd, scored a run. So, Josh Bell, former Padre. We'll give it to Josh Bell. Probably Josh or Jazz Chisholm Jr., our player of the game. As always, gives me no great pleasure to be handing out our player of the game to a Marlin, but a game like today, nobody stood out on the pitching side. Ha-Seong Kim did have the lone bright spot offensively for the Padres with the home run, but in a 9-1 defeat, got to go with the Marlin here today. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We have a number of finals already today around the major leagues. Dodgers end up sweeping the Mets in New York. Final score there, Dodgers 10 and the Mets 3. Shohei Ohtani, a 2-run home run in that game. Will Smith, a home run in that game. That was a closer game than the final score would indicate. Dodgers end up scoring 6 runs in the 8th inning, 1 in the 9th inning. How about that? It was a 3-3 game at the top of the 8th inning. Dodgers win it 10-3 against the Mets. Phillies beat the Giants 6-1 in San Francisco. Kyle Schwarber, a home run in that game for Philadelphia. Doubleheader today between the Pirates and the Tigers. Tigers won game 1, 8-0. Pirates won game 2, 10-2. Paul Skeens in game 2 collected 9 strikeouts in a grand total of 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs given up. He was very good. Skeens has been as advertised so far in the very early part of his major league career. And oh, by the way, he just turned 22 today, his 22nd birthday. A win for Paul Skeens in that one. He's now 2-0 with a 2.45 ERA. Rangers beat the Diamondbacks 6-1 in Arlington. Corey Seager hit his 8th home run in 8 games. He has been red hot for Texas as they win it 6-1. Cardinals beat the Reds 5-3 in Cincinnati. Nolan Gorman a home run in that game for the Cardinals. Game's going on right now. Orioles ahead of the Red Sox 5-1 in Baltimore, 5th inning there. A's and the Rays tied at 1 in Tampa Bay in the 5th inning. Nationals and the Braves in Atlanta in the 2nd, no score. Brewers 2, Cubs nothing in Milwaukee in the 1st inning. Royals and the Twins are scoreless in Minnesota in the 1st inning. Blue Jays and the White Sox in the 2nd, in Chicago scoreless. Games yet to begin. Guardians and the Rockies in Colorado at 5:40. Yankees in Anaheim against the Angels at 6:40. Astros and the Mariners in Seattle at 6:40. And that is a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Wednesday. When we come back on our post-game coverage, we'll do a couple of things. We'll hear our play of the game. We'll replay some of what Mike Shildt had to say after this one in case you missed it a little bit earlier. Maybe you're just hopping in the car on the way home from work. So we'll hear our play of the game. We'll hear an interesting interaction between the media and Mike Shildt after the game in case you missed that. We'll wrap it up, get you ready for this road trip coming up to Kansas City and Anaheim, and much more to get to as we wrap this one up. Marlins 9, Padres 1 the final. More post-game after this. Petco Park as we continue to wrap this one up. Padres do take 2 out of 3 from the Marlins. They go 3-on-3 in this on this homestand against the Yankees and the Marlins, and we shall see what the road trip brings. The one coming up to Kansas City and against the Angels up in Anaheim. We'll preview that series against Kansas City coming up in just a little bit. We'll also replay some of what Mike Shildt had to say after the game before we hand things off to Chris Ello and Matt Scraby. They are standing by with today's edition of Gwynn and Chris. They'll take you until 6 p.m. And then the Scraby Show from 6 to 7. Although, I don't know, is Chris joining Scraby until 7 today? Maybe. Maybe not. Scraby, 6 to 7. We'll see. You get Scraby. That's all that matters, right? Matt Scraby. You'll get him until 7 p.m. at the very least. Love that Scraby Show. All right, before we hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt, in case you missed it earlier, let's quickly hear our play of the game.
What was the crucial play that determined who came out on top? This is today's Play of the Game, presented by Bill Howe Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
Not a lot down at the bottom so far. We'll see if that continues. 1-1 pitch, lined into the right center field gap. Tatis on the move. Overran it, gets over his head, and the Marlins going to take the lead as Gordon comes in to score. Cortez slides feet first into second, and the Fish in front 1-0 here in inning number 2.
The RBI double for Nick Fortes, putting the Marlins ahead 1-0. Yeah, it was in the second inning. Yeah, the score ended up being 9-1. But you know what? The Marlins never looked back. They would score 2 in that second, 1 in the third, took a 3-0 lead. Padres would make it 3-1 on the home run by Ha-Sung Kim. But that was as close as the Padres would get. Marlins would then get 3 in the fifth, 1 in the sixth, 1 run in the seventh, 1 more in the ninth inning for good measure, and they win it 9-1. So just the way it was here today. We take that early Marlins RBI double. That's our play of the game. And unfortunately, here on this Wednesday afternoon, all our daily awards went to the Marlins. Sometimes that happens when you have a ball game like the Padres played today. Not particularly well pitched, not great defense, quiet offense. One of those days for the Padres as they lose this series finale. All right, before we hear from Mike Shildt here, and I just want to play this again before we get out of here, preview this upcoming road trip, because this was an interesting and entertaining interaction between Mike Shildt and the media downstairs. You might have heard it a little bit earlier, but in case you're just hopping in the car joining us, worth playing again. Look, Padres have won 7 of 9 series. They are 16-12 in the last 28 games. So a lot of good, but at the same time, they're 30-29, and they have not really got that hot run going, right? So consider all those things as we hear from Mike Shildt here. Before we do that, we have to pause for station ID on the Padres radio network. With you here inside the loft at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park. All right, let's go back downstairs, hear what Mike Shildt had to say. Some of the interaction here after today's 9-1 loss at the hands of the Miami Marlins.
This season, when you guys have kind of hit some rough patches, you've kind of fought back with resiliency, and then there have been a few times where it looks like you're about to take off and haven't quite hit that gear yet. What do you make anything of that, or is that just...
See, I kind of take a little exception with that. I really do. I mean, you know, like, every time we lose a game, we can't, like, say it's like there's a rough patch when we just won a series. I don't get that. I mean, and you win 7 out of 9 series. I get it, we lost. It wasn't a crisp game, but you know, I don't buy into that. I can't support that particular narrative.
Can I clarify then?
You can
because I don't think this was a rough patch. I think you guys were playing pretty good baseball the last 3 games, and
right.
You haven't necessarily been able to kind of really hit that stride that's taken you guys off this season. I'm just wondering if that roller coaster, in your opinion, is just kind of the nature of the
again. I take exception with this roller coaster. I want to ride every roller coaster I can ever get on, winning 7 out of 9 series. You sign me up for that ride, I'm all on board. Because you know, if you go 6-4 the whole season, you win 96 games. So I mean, I do understand the question. You talk about taking off, but gosh, man, I don't have a great answer for winning 7 out of 9 series not being good enough.
Hey, Mike, which hamstring is it? I'm sorry.
I believe it's his right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay. Like, how difficult is it to sweep a team? You know,
It's hard. It's the big leagues. It's not easy. I mean, clearly we're ready to go out and, to AJ's point, continue to take off, and we didn't today. Their guys pretty good. Just come off a complete game. Threw the ball well. They had some good at bats. They made their plays. Didn't play our best and didn't win a game.
as you point out, these guys are human, right? So these
Yeah, of
games
course.
happen over the course of 162.
They just do.
So do you just, like, when this game happens, is there things that are addressed, like or
What would we address? That's the part and again, I don't want to be, I've admitted the game wasn't clean. I'm not alibying it. The game was not clean. It wasn't our best effort. No question about it. What would also be nice if we had conversations about, hey, the team's playing well. They won 7 out of 9. This looks pretty good. They played clean. Bullpen was good. Those kind of questions. So I don't know what I would address to a group that's playing really good baseball that just didn't have their best day. I don't know what to say to that. Today was not our best effort.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt after the game. Again, we played that a little bit earlier, and I just wanted to replay it for you because I thought it was worth playing again. Look, I think the questions from the media are fair when you're 30-29. It's not like this team is 10 games above 500 the first third of the season through. They're 16-12 in their last 28 games. They have won 7 of 9 series. So you zoom out over the last month, it has been a good brand of baseball for the most part. There was a sweep at the hands of the Rockies in there, and then there was a series loss against the Yankees over the weekend that I don't think anybody, thinks was like the worst thing in the world considering how great the Yankees are playing right now. And like I said earlier, and I'll wrap it up by saying this. As I always say, two things can be true at once. You could be playing some pretty good baseball, 7 of 9 series wins, 16-12 in your last 28 games. I've said those numbers now 10,000 times on this postgame. But you're also sitting at 30-29, and you feel like this team will eventually need, I think, 2 things. One, very generally, will need that hot run, and we'll also need guys like Fernando and Manny to really, really, really get it going in a major, major way. So we'll see what, the next 100-plus games bring. We're 59 games in, 30-29, but, Mike Shildt has always been very, very positive about his group from the outset here. But, good back and forth there. Fun to listen to. So we'll see what holds on this coming road trip, what happens on this coming road trip. All right, let's look ahead to that road trip against the Royals and the Angels. Day off tomorrow. Padres will be on their way to Kansas City soon. Day off in Kansas City tomorrow. Then, start of a 3-game series on Friday in Kansas City. It'll be Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres against right now TBA for the Kansas City Royals. The Royals do play tomorrow, and it'll be Brady Singer on the mound, so they have not announced their rotation for the series coming up beginning on Friday. So right now, it's Dylan Cease on the mound Friday for the Padres, then Joe Musgrove Saturday, Sunday Michael King. First pitch on Friday at 5:10 p.m. Arica Water SoCal. Padres pregame show will begin at 4:10 here on the West Coast. So again, 5:10 with the series opener. First pitch on Friday. Our pregame coverage at 4:10. Certainly hope you can join us then. Taking a look at the final totals in this one here today. For the Marlins, 9 runs, 16 hits, no errors. They left on 10. For the Padres, 1 run, 8 hits, 2 errors. They left on 7. Winning pitcher in this game was Braxton Garrett, who improves to 2-0. Losing pitcher, Yu Darvish, who drops to 4-3. By the way, we should mention, too, when you heard the hamstring question there in the postgame press conference from Kevin Acee, if you missed it earlier, Yu Darvish only went 3 innings in this game. He only threw 66 pitches, didn't come back out for the 4th inning in what was at the time just a 3-0 game. Well, he was removed, according to Mike Shildt, with tightness in his hamstring. So he's going to get some more tests, it sounds like. Doesn't sound necessarily all that serious right now, but he's going to get some more testing done, but he was removed with some tightness in his hamstring today. That's why he only went 3 innings in this game, so we'll certainly keep an eye on that with you, Darvish. Time of game, 2 hours, 48 minutes. The crowd at Petco Park on this Wednesday, 32,227. As always, if you missed any of our post-game coverage, you can go back and listen to all of it on the Inside San Diego Baseball podcast with Sam Levitt, available on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your podcasts. For our great studio coordinator, Frank Marchese, I'm Sam Levitt saying so long from Petco Park. Chris Ello, Matt Scraby coming up next here on 97.3 The Fan. We'll talk to you on Friday right here on the Padres Radio Network.